The Creator just came out 2023, and it's a sci-fi epic created by the visual director himself, known as Gareth Edwards, also known for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And unfortunately, I actually didn't like Rogue One, a Star Wars story. The one thing I liked about that movie was the atmosphere, the tonalities, the world building. I enjoyed a lot of that. And thankfully for me, a lot of those aspects are translated from that movie into this one. So I was very appreciative of that. But The Creator, what is this movie about? Well, this movie follows the character of Joshua, played by John David Washington. He is this Marine. He's a little traumatized. He's been through quite a lot. He recently had a mission to where he had to infiltrate the enemy by becoming essentially one of them. And he returns home and he loses some limbs from a huge explosion, a nuclear explosion said to be caused by AI. And this sets him on a path of hatred for robots, AI. If they're dead, no, they're not dead. They're just turned off to him, and he doesn't want anything to do with that. On this brand new mission, in order to find his wife, he stumbles upon a brand new companion known as Alfie, who seems very, very human, but also is considered to be one of the most powerful AI out there. And thus, the story of The Creator unfolds and takes us on this epic journey with both Alfie and Joshua. However, there are a few caveats to this film that just kind of hinder it quite, I'd say a lot actually, in my opinion. And that has to do with a lot of the questions that this film directs towards its audience. It asks us a lot of questions about AI use, and whether or not AI is the next step in human evolution. And so after the film asks you all of these questions, you just have to stop and ponder and think, these are some really stupid questions. Why are you asking me this? Like, duh, have you not seen Terminator? No. It's basically the whole foundation of this movie is asking you these questions about AI and being relatable to humans. And at the end of the day, no. For me, it's just one big no. And even going through this movie, it didn't make me question anything. I didn't think about things in other ways. And yes, this film takes you on a very, very long journey, especially with the character of Alfie. And it makes you think and ponder and wonder, just thinking, Alfie, would I care if this small childlike AI was to be destroyed? And from a certain sense, yes and no. Now, if we saw an actual movie with an actual robot interacting with Joshua, it would have added a lot more emphasis to these questions that the movie is asking. But it decided to take a more personal tone. It decided, hey, I'm gonna try to pull on your heartstrings a little bit more by using this child actor. And I just wanna go ahead and mention real quick, the actor playing Alfie, she did such a phenomenal job, and just wow, I was blown away. They literally outperformed both the lead actor and all of the other actors in the background, and even some of my favorite actors in this movie. The character of Alfie does so much in this movie that makes me just go, wow, those were some pretty incredible scenes. But what's funny is at the end of the day, is that these questions being raised, especially concerning Alfie, it still doesn't impact me, because I still see the bigger answer as it is. And this movie, it's very much a philosophy class in of itself. Despite all the war going on, all the characters growing and learning from their experiences, this movie, at the core of things, it is a philosophical take on whether or not AI, if they're, the next step, a lot of, pondering, thought-provoking questions, but they also just don't really amount to much of anything. Because one, I don't think that people actually care, and two, I think that we have enough sense to say no to a lot of these questions. So let's go ahead and talk about some stuff that I actually did enjoy about this movie. Firstly being, I loved the epicness of the visual effects. They blew me out of the water, especially with how the way this film was shot on a Sony FX3. If you guys didn't know this, I film all of my reviews on a Sony a7S III, which is like essentially the little brother to the FX3. All it's missing is the tally light and a fan inside the body, but that's it. This thing I'm shooting on that I'm posting on YouTube with, all of this, it was used to film this movie. As somebody who loves video work, who loves making films, and has a professional, prosumer grade camera, and seeing it used on a scale of like this caliber, I just was so amped to go and watch this movie. However, a lot of the visual fidelity actually fell off for me, and that has to do a lot with the high ISO. The Sony a7S III and FX3 have a dual native ISO, both at, I believe, 640 and 12,800. This film, it should be looking quite well, especially in darkly lit scenes. However, the dark scenes where it's just lit by moonlight, per se, you still notice a lot of noise on the screen. And I don't know if that was a visual choice put in post-production after the film was made, or if that was actually in-body camera film grain, which would make sense if they did end up going over 12,800 ISO, which I can absolutely see them doing in these very low light scenarios. But it was especially in those scenes that you could see the grain just hiss at you, and it's just visually distracting to me. It took me out of the movie. When they asked the questions, I thought to myself, well, yeah, I'm trying to think of the question, but I'm also trying to figure out what exactly I'm looking at in this shot that's covered up by all this film grain. Maybe it was the projection at my movie theater. I don't think so, because I've never had this issue before, and I also see that grain when I do go past 640 or 12,800 on my own camera. That just took me out of the movie, and I was very disappointed to see that. I've been kind of on this self-journey of discovering what some of my favorite movies are in terms of genres, and one of those is a coming-of-age story. And they do that with this movie in terms of both Alfie and as well as the character Joshua. With Joshua specifically, just going from one character to a complete other character by the end of this movie. It's honestly kind of surprising to see him change so much throughout the film. When you're comparing Joshua at the beginning of the movie to Joshua at the end of the movie, things just don't really line up. And for me, I feel like a lot of that has to do with the pacing. This movie is divided into chapters, and a lot of that also has to do with a lot of the background characters as well. Just kind of whenever they die, the next plot point gets connected. And so those characters, they actually don't matter, and the whole nihilism behind that just kind of doesn't sit right with me. I just think to myself, what was the point of these characters in, I don't know, Joshua's unit, or the raid on this village, or even like the robots on this side of the war? Like, what was the point of showing all those characters dying? Focusing a lot on that rather than Joshua's own personal growth, I feel like it just detracted from the film, and I just couldn't get my hooks into the character of Joshua. I understand how he got there. I just couldn't feel that connection. I couldn't agree with him on connecting with especially Alfie. I just don't feel like the time is there for Joshua to have this huge change in character development. There's just a passage of time that we, the audience, we don't necessarily get to see that. And that's fine. That's used in a lot of movies. But when you're trying to resonate with characters, you really want to amplify that time spent between the two, especially between Alfie and Joshua. And I just personally wish we got more of that. We kind of see this movie a lot in other mediums. For example, Westworld Season 1, none of the other seasons, it asks a lot of these questions in a much more deeper, conventional way, and you actually care about a lot of the characters in Westworld Season 1, and then you take all of those elements and mash it up with, I don't know, let's say Logan from Marvel. Take those two mediums and push them together into this mold that doesn't really fit, but you kind of make your own epic sci-fi fantasy out of that. And it really also begs the question, is this movie stealing, or is it borrowing, or is it taking inspiration from other mediums? Because this is kind of similar to that of Joker, where a lot of people are saying, yeah, Taxi Driver, Joker, pretty much the same movie. And I feel like it's not its own thing. It doesn't feel like it belongs in the sci-fi universe as its own unique, cohesive film. I agree that it is a spectacle, and the effects are there, and the characters are there, but it's just the execution, the overall execution of this movie that I just did not care for. In a video game, definitely play this, because this asks a lot more questions and actually makes you feel for a lot of AI characters. But again, yes, you can argue the fact that movies, they do steal, they do take inspiration. However, some movies like Joker and this one, it just feels more like it's borrowing rather than taking inspiration from. What did you guys think about The Creator? I thought it was just an okay movie. I think overall, in terms of sci-fi, it's gonna be an epic. People are gonna look at this movie very fondly. I think it's gonna break a lot of foundations in filmmaking and help with the cost effectiveness of a lot of things, because this movie was made very, very cheaply. If you guys wanna check out some other content from me, some other movie reviews, be sure to check out somewhere on the screen. The YouTube algorithm will definitely appreciate it. In addition, if you guys enjoy enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like down below. It really, really does help out the channel. Comments, engagement, everything. It really does help. My name's Austin, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.